4:17 a.m. Gary, Indiana. January 30th, 2026. 12 federal vehicles blocked both ends of a dead-end street in the Lake Street Industrial Corridor. Agents from Homeland Security Investigations moved toward a single-story building with blacked-out windows. The sign above the loading dock still read, Lakeshore Baking Supply. Inside, a Heidelberg Speedmaster press was running at 4 in the morning. This was Operation Paper Ghost. 5 months of surveillance, 3 federal agencies, 1 target, a document forgery factory that had flooded 7 states with fake identities, 58,000 finished documents, a customer list with 12,000 names, and a revenue stream that federal investigators would later estimate at $41 million. The ram hit the front door at 4:18 a.m. To understand how a converted bakery in Gary, Indiana, became the largest fraudulent document operation seized in the Midwest in over a decade, you have to go back 5 months. To a traffic stop in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and a 20-year-old college student with an Illinois driver's license that was almost perfect. October 11th, 2025, Kenosha County. A sheriff's deputy pulled over a Honda Civic for a broken taillight on Highway 50. The driver, a University of Wisconsin Parkside sophomore, handed over an Illinois license. It scanned. The barcode returned valid data. The holographic overlay shifted correctly under the deputy's flashlight. But the deputy noticed something. The laminate edge along the bottom left corner had a texture he hadn't seen before. Slightly rougher than standard. He'd processed hundreds of Illinois licenses during his career. This one felt different in his hand. He detained the driver, ran the license number through the Illinois Secretary of State database. The number existed. It belonged to a 63-year-old woman in Naperville. The student admitted the ID was fake, purchased for $350 through a contact at his university. He'd used it at bars for 6 months without a single rejection. Even a TSA agent at O'Hare had accepted it during a domestic flight in September. That detail, the TSA acceptance, changed the trajectory of the case. A fake ID that fools a bartender is a misdemeanor. A fake ID that passes federal security screening is a national security concern. The Kenosha Sheriff's Office forwarded the case to HSI's Chicago field office. It landed on the desk of Special Agent Diana Novak. Novak had spent 11 years working document fraud cases. She'd seen every quality tier from gas station laminate jobs to sophisticated foreign intelligence forgeries. When she examined the Kenosha ID under magnification at the HSI Forensic Lab in Chicago, she identified 17 distinct security features that matched genuine Illinois licenses. 17. A standard fake ID replicates 3 to 5. High-quality forgeries from overseas, typically produced in China or Eastern Europe, replicate 8 to 10. 17 was a number Novak had never encountered in a domestic case. She requested analysis from the U.S. Secret Service's Document Analysis Laboratory in Washington, D.C. The Secret Service maintains jurisdiction over document and identity fraud as part of its original 1865 mandate. Their lab is considered the most advanced document forensics facility in the Western Hemisphere. The results came back on October 29, 2025. The lab confirmed what Novak suspected. The Kenosha ID used Teslin substrate, the same synthetic paper used by actual state DMV facilities. The UV reactive ink matched the spectral signature of ink supplied to Illinois by its contracted vendor. The barcode encoding followed the exact AAMVA format with proper checksums. Whoever made this document had access to state-level printing specifications, not approximations, the actual specifications. Novak pulled every fraudulent document case from HSI's Great Lakes Region database filed since January 2025. She found 47, spread across Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Minnesota, and Iowa. Different cities, different circumstances. Traffic stops, bar raids, bank fraud investigations, identity theft complaints. No one had connected them. She requested physical evidence from each case. 31 of the 47 still had the seized documents in evidence storage. She examined all 31. 28 matched. Same substrate, same ink chemistry, same encoding format, same laminate texture along the bottom left edge. 28 documents, seized across 5 states over 10 months, all produced by the same source. If you're finding this investigation compelling, hit the like button now. It helps this channel continue producing content like this. Novak's next step was the supply chain. Teslin substrate isn't sold at office supply stores. It's manufactured by PPG Industries and distributed through a restricted network of authorized vendors. In the United States, fewer than 40 companies purchase Teslin in quantities sufficient for document production. HSI issued subpoenas to PPG's distribution records. One order stood out. A company called Great Lakes Print Solutions, registered in Hammond, Indiana, had purchased Teslin in bulk 4 times between March and September 2025. Total quantity: enough substrate for approximately 70,000 documents. Great Lakes Print Solutions had no website, no social media presence, no listed clients. Its registered address was a UPS store mailbox in Hammond. The company had been incorporated in Indiana in January 2025. Its sole listed officer, a man named Victor Marsh, age 44. Victor Marsh had a background that explained everything. From 2018 to 2023, Marsh worked as a senior print technician for Digimarc contracted facilities that produced driver's licenses for the state of Indiana. He held a security clearance, he had direct access to template files, encoding specifications, and security feature documentation for Indiana licenses. Through interstate collaboration programs, he also had access to specifications shared between Midwestern states for anti-counterfeiting coordination. Marsh left his position in November 2023. The departure was voluntary. No investigation was triggered. No exit audit of his digital access was conducted. What Marsh took with him when he left would later fill 3 terabytes of storage on encrypted hard drives seized during the raid. Template files for 14 states, UV ink formulations, barcode encoding algorithms, holographic overlay specifications, laminate composition data, an entire library of the most closely guarded document security information in the country. November 2025. HSI established surveillance on Victor Marsh, physical and electronic. Agents from the Chicago field office, supplemented by Secret Service agents from the Indianapolis resident office, began documenting his movements. Marsh lived in a modest ranch house in Munster, Indiana. He drove a 2021 Ford F-150. He kept regular hours. Every morning at 7:45 a.m., he drove 14 miles south on Interstate 65 to Gary. He parked behind a single-story commercial building on Lake Street in an industrial corridor between a scrapyard and a defunct auto parts warehouse. The building's lease records showed it was rented by Great Lakes Print Solutions. Monthly rent, $4,200. The previous tenant had been a commercial bakery that closed during the pandemic. The industrial ventilation system, loading dock, and floor drains designed for the bakery made the space ideal for a print operation. HSI deployed a fixed surveillance camera on a utility pole 200 yards east of the building. Within the first week, agents documented a pattern. Marsh arrived each morning. Between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., 7 other individuals arrived separately. All 8 remained inside until approximately 8 p.m. 12-hour shifts. Twice per week, typically Tuesday and Friday evenings, a van pulled up to the loading dock. It stayed for 15 to 20 minutes. Then it departed. Different vans, different plates, but always the same pattern. Agents followed the vans. The first traced van led to an apartment complex in Milwaukee. The second to a house in Rockford, Illinois. The third to a commercial storage unit in Detroit. Each location would later be confirmed as a distribution node. The Secret Service brought in thermal imaging equipment in late November. The scans of the Lake Street building showed significant heat signatures consistent with large format offset and digital printing equipment operating continuously. The heat output was far beyond what any legitimate small print shop would generate. HSI obtained a federal warrant for electronic surveillance on Marsh's phone and email. The intercepts revealed an operation that was both more sophisticated and more dangerous than a college fake ID mill. Marsh communicated with distributors through encrypted messaging, but he used a separate, unencrypted phone for coordinating supply purchases. On that phone, agents found text messages discussing order quantities, pricing tiers, and delivery schedules. The pricing structure revealed the market. A single fake driver's license sold for $350 at retail, the price the Kenosha student paid. But bulk orders received steep discounts. Orders of $50 or more, $175 each. Orders of $200 or more, $90 each. The bulk buyers weren't college students. December 3rd, 2025. HSI intercepted a phone call between Marsh and a distributor based in Columbus, Ohio. The distributor requested 400 Michigan licenses with specific names, dates of birth, and addresses preloaded. He needed them within 10 days. He was paying $36,000. 400 documents with preloaded personal information meant 400 specific identities being assumed. This was not recreational fake ID use. This was systematic identity theft infrastructure. Novak's team cross-referenced the names from the intercepted order against federal databases. 14 matched active identity theft complaints filed with the FTC. 7 matched names flagged in the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network for suspicious bank account openings. 3 matched individuals on the FBI's domestic terrorism watch list who had been reported as using fraudulent identification. 3 names on a terrorism watch list. That finding elevated Operation Paper Ghost from an HSI document fraud case to a multi-agency national security investigation. December 9th, 2025. A joint task force was formally established. HSI remained the lead agency. The Secret Service provided document forensics expertise and additional surveillance resources. The FBI assigned agents from its Joint Terrorism Task Force in Chicago to investigate the watchlist connections. The U.S. Postal Inspection Service joined to investigate interstate shipment of fraudulent documents through the mail. 4 agencies, 1 target, and a decision that would define the case: when to move. The task force faced a strategic tension. Every day the factory operated, more fraudulent documents entered circulation. More identities were compromised. More individuals who shouldn't have clean identification obtained it. The security risk was ongoing and immediate, but every day of surveillance also yielded more intelligence. More distributors identified, more customers traced, more of the network mapped. Moving too early meant catching Marsh and his print team, but losing the distribution network. Moving too late meant more damage already done. Novak argued for patience. Her analysis showed the distribution network extended beyond the 7 states already identified. Intercepts suggested connections to buyers in Tennessee and Kentucky that hadn't been fully mapped. She wanted 3 more months. The FBI's JTTF representatives disagreed. 3 individuals on domestic terrorism watch list had potentially received functioning identity documents. The Bureau could not justify allowing continued production while known security threats held factory-quality fake IDs. The compromise: 6 more weeks. The task force would continue surveillance through January 2026, focusing specifically on identifying every distribution node and tracing the watch list connected documents. Then they would move. Those 6 weeks produced critical intelligence. December 14th, 2025. Surveillance cameras documented a delivery van departing the Gary facility and driving directly to a storage unit in Joliet, Illinois. Agents followed. The driver, later identified as Marcus Webb, age 31, transferred 4 sealed boxes from the van into the unit. He locked it and left. HSI obtained a warrant to search the storage unit the following day. Inside, 2,200 finished documents. Driver's licenses from 6 states. All vacuum sealed in packets of 50. All with preloaded identities. The agents documented everything, photographed every document, recorded every serial number, then resealed the boxes and left the unit exactly as they found it. They did not arrest Webb. They did not seize the documents. They let the operation continue. But now they had direct evidence of the product, the quantity, and the supply chain. December 22, 2025. An HSI undercover agent made contact with a mid-level distributor in Detroit named Antoine Price. Price operated out of a barbershop on Livernois Avenue. The undercover agent, posing as a representative of a credit card fraud ring, requested 200 Michigan licenses with specific identity data. Price quoted $95 per document. Delivery in 2 weeks. He mentioned casually that his supplier could produce any state. Even California, even New York. Takes a little longer for those. Different paper. Different paper. That meant Marsh had sourced substrate specific to multiple states. The operation wasn't limited to Midwest documents. It could produce identification for states across the country. The undercover agent's hidden recording captured Price making one additional comment. "My guy used to make the real ones. That's why they scan." January 6, 2026, the task force received final intelligence that shaped the raid plan. Electronic surveillance captured Marsh discussing a major order with a new buyer, someone Marsh referred to only as the Professor. This buyer wanted 500 documents, not driver's licenses. Social security cards, birth certificates, and employment authorization documents. A complete identity package for 500 individuals. The purpose was explicit in the intercepted communications. The documents were intended for a labor trafficking operation, bringing workers into agricultural operations in southern Indiana and Kentucky. The 500 individuals would receive complete false identities, enabling them to pass E-Verify employment screening. This was the final escalation, document fraud enabling labor trafficking. Subscribe now so you don't miss what happened next in Operation Paper Ghost. January 12, 2026. The task force held its final planning session at the HSI Chicago field office. 57 agents from 4 agencies sat in a conference room reviewing the operational plan. The raid would target 13 locations simultaneously: the Gary production facility, 11 distribution points across 7 states, and Marsh's residence in Munster. Simultaneous execution was critical. If any distributor learned about the raid before agents reached their location, evidence would be destroyed. The plan required precise timing across 3 time zones. Agent Novak presented the target summary. The factory employed 8 individuals, including Marsh. 11 distribution nodes had been confirmed, each operated by 1 to 3 individuals. Total arrest targets, 23. The equipment inside the factory was valued at approximately $2 million. Agents expected to find multiple Heidelberg offset presses, at least 2 large-format digital printers, lamination systems, UV curing equipment, die-cutting machines, and holographic foil transfer systems. The Secret Service's document analysis team would be on site to catalog and preserve the equipment as evidence. Every agent received a synchronization briefing. All teams would be in position by 4 a.m. Eastern on January 30th. The go signal would come at 4:15 a.m., 4 minutes between final positioning and breach. January 30th, 2026, 3:47 a.m. Eastern. Gary, Indiana. The HSI tactical team assembled in the parking lot of a closed gas station 3 blocks from the Lake Street facility. 12 agents, body armor, federal warrants. The temperature was 19 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind off Lake Michigan pushed the wind chill to 7. At 3:52 a.m., the team leader confirmed all perimeter units were in position. 2 agents covered the loading dock at the rear. 2 more covered the only other exit, a fire door on the west side. An HSI aviation asset, a Cessna equipped with infrared cameras, orbited at 3,000 feet, providing real-time thermal imagery to the command post. The infrared feed showed 8 heat signatures inside the building. All 8 were concentrated in the central production area. The press was running. At 4 in the morning on a Thursday, Victor Marsh's team was working a shift. At 4 a.m., Novak confirmed radio check with all 13 raid locations. Milwaukee, ready? Detroit, ready? Columbus, ready. Rockford, ready. Indianapolis, ready. Minneapolis, ready. Cleveland, ready. Joliet, ready. 3 additional locations in Chicago suburbs, ready. Marsh's residence in Munster, ready. Gary Production Facility, ready. 13 teams, 57 agents, 7 states, all waiting for one word, 4:15 a.m. Novak transmitted, execute, execute, execute. In Gary, the tactical team moved from the gas station parking lot to the facility in 47 seconds. The lead agent hit the front entrance with a breaching ram. The door gave on the second strike. Agents poured through. Inside, the space looked nothing like a bakery. The front section had been walled off with drywall, creating a reception area with nothing in it. No furniture, no signs, no indication of any business activity. Behind the drywall partition, the full production floor opened up. 3 Heidelberg Speedmaster presses dominated the center of the room. Each was running. Sheets of Teflon substrate moved through the machines, each sheet carrying 8 driver's license blanks. 2 large-format Epson digital printers sat against the east wall, producing the variable data, names, photos, addresses, dates of birth, that would be applied to the blanks. Along the south wall, a lamination station held rolls of holographic overlay material, UV curing lamps, a die-cutting machine that punched finished licenses to the exact dimensions of genuine documents, a quality control station with a stack of reference licenses, real documents from 14 states kept on hand for visual comparison. The 8 workers froze. One reached for a phone. An agent secured it before the call connected. Within 90 seconds, all 8 individuals were prone on the floor, hands zip-tied, being read their Miranda rights. Victor Marsh was at the quality control station when agents entered. He was holding a finished Wisconsin license, comparing it to the genuine reference copy under a magnifying lamp. He did not resist. He did not speak. In Munster, agents entered Marsh's residence at 4:16 a.m. His wife and 2 children were home. The family was secured in the living room while agents executed the search warrant. In a locked office on the second floor, agents found 3 external hard drives in a fireproof safe. The drives contained the template library, digital files for 14 state driver's licenses, 3 state ID cards, social security card templates, and birth certificate formats for 11 states. 3 terabytes of data. The most comprehensive collection of stolen government document specifications ever recovered in a single domestic case. Milwaukee, 3:15 a.m. Central. Agents hit a second-floor apartment on South Kinnickinnick Avenue. The distributor, the same individual who had originally been flipped during the early stages of the investigation, was not present. His apartment contained 430 documents ready for distribution, a customer ledger and a spiral notebook, and $11,000 in cash. The distributor was located the following day at a relative's home in Racine and arrested without incident. Detroit, 4:17 a.m. Eastern. Agents entered Antoine Price's barbershop on Livernois Avenue through the front and rear simultaneously. Price was not there. He was at his residence 2 miles away. Agents at the barbershop found a hidden compartment behind a mirror in the back room. Inside, 1,600 finished documents, a laptop with encrypted customer communications, and a Glock 19 handgun with the serial number removed. Price was arrested at his home at 4:31 a.m. He was alone. Columbus, 4:18 a.m. Eastern. The distributor who had ordered 400 Michigan licenses in December was at his location, a small office in a strip mall on East Main Street. Agents found the 400 Michigan documents still sealed in the original packaging from the Gary factory. Also found a desktop computer containing a customer database with over 3,000 entries. Names, requested states, delivery addresses, payment records. Not all locations went smoothly. In Minneapolis, the Target, a distributor operating out of a Vietnamese restaurant on Nicollet Avenue, had apparently been tipped off. When agents arrived at 3:16 a.m. Central, the restaurant's rear door was open. A paper shredder was running. Agents recovered partial documents from the shredder and intact records from a filing cabinet, but estimated that 40 to 50% of the evidence at that location had been destroyed. The distributor was arrested attempting to board a Greyhound bus at the Minneapolis terminal 6 hours later. Cleveland, 4:19 a.m. Eastern. Agents encountered an unexpected complication. The distribution point was a residential home in a dense neighborhood on the west side. The target lived with 3 roommates who were not involved in the operation. Separating the suspects from uninvolved civilians in a small house during a pre-dawn raid required careful management. The arrest was completed without incident, but took 45 minutes longer than planned. By 6 a.m. Eastern, all 13 locations had been secured. 21 of 23 targets were in custody. The Minneapolis distributor was apprehended later that morning. One target, a distributor in the Chicago suburbs identified only by a phone number and the alias Danny K, was not found at the expected location. As of the public record, Danny K has not been apprehended. The seizure inventory from all locations compiled over the following 72 hours was staggering. 58,000 finished fraudulent documents. Driver's licenses from 14 states. Social security cards, birth certificates, employment authorization documents. Each one capable of passing electronic verification. Printing equipment valued at $2.1 million. 3 Heidelberg presses. 2 large format digital printers. Lamination and UV curing systems. Die cutting machines. Holographic foil application equipment. The customer database recovered from the Columbus location and from Marsh's encrypted hard drives contained over 12,000 unique entries. 12,000 individuals or organizations that had purchased fraudulent identity documents from this single operation. Cash seized across all locations, $687,000. Vehicles, 9. The Glock 19 from the Detroit barbershop was the only weapon recovered. February 2026. The investigation entered its post-raid phase. Federal prosecutors from the Northern District of Indiana convened a grand jury. The 23 defendants faced charges including conspiracy to produce fraudulent identification documents, aggravated identity theft, wire fraud, and, for Marsh specifically, theft of government property and unauthorized disclosure of classified document security specifications. Marsh's charges carried the heaviest potential sentences. The theft of government printing specifications was prosecuted under statutes typically reserved for espionage-adjacent cases. Combined with the scale of the operation, Marsh faced up to 45 years in federal prison. The financial analysis revealed the scope of the revenue. Over the approximately 22 months the factory operated, from March 2025 through January 2026, the operation generated an estimated $41 million in gross revenue. The pricing structure ranged from $90 per document for bulk orders to $350 for individual retail purchases. Average price across all sales, approximately $210 per document. $41 million. Produced in a former bakery with 8 employees and equipment that cost $2 million to acquire. The profit margin was extraordinary. Raw materials, substrate, ink, laminates, holographic foil, cost approximately $11 per document. Labor, rent, and overhead brought the total production cost to roughly $19 per document. At an average sale price of $210, the margin exceeded 90%. But the financial damage extended far beyond the factory's revenue. The Secret Service's Financial Crimes Division estimated that the fraudulent documents enabled downstream fraud. Bank account openings, credit card applications, loan originations, tax refund theft, totaling between $120 million and $180 million. The fake IDs were not the final product. They were the key that opened every other door. The 12,000 name customer database presented its own challenge. Not every buyer was a criminal. Analysis by HSI and the FBI categorized the purchasers into tiers. Approximately 31% were individuals seeking fake IDs for age-related purposes. primarily underage drinking. These cases were referred to local law enforcement for potential misdemeanor charges. Approximately 44% were connected to financial fraud operations, identity theft rings, credit card fraud networks, bank fraud schemes. These cases were distributed to FBI and Secret Service field offices across the country for investigation. Approximately 8% were individuals whose real identities were flagged in federal databases. Immigration violations, outstanding warrants, or watch list entries. These cases received priority handling through the FBI's JTTF and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The remaining 17% could not be immediately categorized. Some entries used aliases, some used cryptocurrency payments that couldn't be traced to individuals. Some were single transactions with no additional identifying information. What this means is that roughly 2,000 individuals who purchased documents from the Gary factory remain unidentified. 2,000 people carrying identity documents that pass electronic verification. Documents that look real, feel real, scan real. Walking through airports, opening bank accounts, renting apartments, getting hired. Whoever they are, wherever they are, their documents still work. March 2026. The first plea agreements were entered. 7 of the 23 defendants, all low-level distributors, accepted plea deals. Sentences ranged from 18 months to 4 years in federal prison. All 7 agreed to cooperate with ongoing investigations into the customer network. Antoine Price, the Detroit distributor, did not accept a plea. His case was complicated by the defaced firearm found at his barbershop, which added federal weapons charges. His trial was scheduled for June 2026. Victor Marsh also did not accept a plea. Through his attorney, he maintained that the document specifications he used were obtained through legitimate professional knowledge, not theft. Prosecutors presented the 3 terabytes of stolen files as evidence to the contrary. His trial was expected in late 2026. The professor, the buyer who ordered 500 complete identity packages for the labor trafficking operation, was identified through phone records as Raymond Goss, age 52, of Evansville, Indiana. Goss operated a labor contracting company that supplied workers to agricultural operations in southern Indiana and Kentucky. He was arrested on February 14, 2026, and charged with document fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit forced labor. His case was prosecuted separately by the Southern District of Indiana. The Minneapolis evidence destruction remained a point of concern. Agents recovered enough material to support prosecution of the local distributor, but the shredded records likely contained customer names that were permanently lost. The source of the apparent tip-off was never conclusively determined. Internal affairs reviews of all agencies involved found no evidence of a leak. The investigation remains open. As for the factory itself, the building on Lake Street in Gary, it sat empty after the raid. The landlord, who had no involvement in the operation, told investigators he had rented the space to Great Lakes Print Solutions for 14 months. He had visited once during the initial lease signing and described seeing what he assumed was a normal print shop. He never returned. The equipment was transported to a Secret Service evidence facility. The Heidelberg presses alone weighed several tons each. Moving them required a specialized rigging crew and 3 flatbed trucks. The entire process took 2 days. Comment below, should government employees with access to secure printing facilities face mandatory exit audits? A single unchecked departure made this entire operation possible. Operation Paper Ghost dismantled the largest domestic document forgery operation discovered in the Midwest. 23 arrests, 58,000 documents seized, 41 million in revenue disrupted. But the operation also exposed a gap. Victor Marsh walked out of a government printing facility in November 2023 with 3 terabytes of the most sensitive document security data in the country. No one checked. No one audited his files. No one reviewed his digital access logs. For over a year, no one noticed the specifications were gone. The Indiana Secretary of State's office implemented new exit protocols in February 2026. Mandatory device audits, digital access reviews, and classification checks for departing employees with security clearances. Several other states announced similar reviews. Whether those protocols would have stopped Marsh is unknowable. What is known, he wasn't the first government printing contractor to leave with sensitive knowledge. He was the first one caught operating at this scale. Danny Kaye remains at large. 2,000 customers remain unidentified, and 58,000 document templates. The digital files capable of producing perfect replicas of 14 state IDs now sit in a federal evidence vault. The factory is closed. The demand that built it is not.